International Academy East is bringing a bit of historical drama to their stage with Radium Girls. And today we're talking with director Carlos Elias and cast members Ishani Patil and Gugan Karthigeyan. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
So this is super exciting. I did not know a lot about this, and I got to research and learn a little bit about what is Radium Girls. And Carlos, seeing that you're kind of the director of this, you're kind of leading the charge, I'm hoping you can kind of tell us the story of what's going on in the show.
Yeah, of course. So Radium Girls is based off a true story where in this play we focus around three girls, Irene, Catherine, and the main girl, Grace, who all are suffering from radium exposure in their jaw due to the method of painting radium that they have, which is they would paint radium dials to be used in World War One. They would place the paintbrush in their mouth to get a pointed tip so they could have a better place to paint. And then they would use that to paint the dials. And with that, the radium started rotting their jaw off. So this is actually a courtroom drama, which is focused around the Radium Girls and their fight against the Radium Corporation in trying to get justice for what happened to them.
Wow, this is a heavy story. Ishani, what drew you to wanting to be a part of this production?
Goodness. First of all, the story was definitely very interesting. I think I'd heard about it before very shortly, so it was definitely a familiar storyline. Was not aware that there was a play on it. So when we started talking about possibly doing this play, it sounded very exciting. And apart from her story alone being very interesting to me, also the character dynamics of the show and knowing the cast that I'd be working with, I was really excited about that too. I'm with some of my best friends. We're the three main girls. That was definitely enticing. Gugan is such a fun partner to act with. We're like kind of like enemies here, and he's so much fun to banter with. So
Gugan, what drew you to the show? Was it to just be the counterpart to Shani here with the bantering?
Well, what firstly drew me to the show is the concept of drama club itself. I also starred in Book of Will in the last play. You guys also interviewed Carlos, I remember. And like the moment I started, I just fell in love with drama club. Like I didn't think I would be someone who is good for this type of thing, performing on stage. But like as soon as I got up there, I just fell in love with it. And secondly, for this play, we let a student direct, as you know, and me and Carlos had a bit of a friendly rivalry going on. And Radium Girls was one of the plays I was actually planning on pitching. And like the moment I read it, I really, really liked it. I actually knew about the story, and I feel that it's just really powerful. Each character has their different quirks, and all of them I love. And I also remember like reading about my character for the first time, and I just like his ideology is just really interesting to me. How he serves as like a physical form of a critique on the American society and capitalism as a whole.
That's awesome. Carlos, what drew you? Like, what was this about the show? You're like, I have to be the one to direct this.
So, when I first read it, I just fell in love with the relevancy that it has today. So in this play, we see a lot of corporate greed that affects the lives of the working class. And I just thought that was incredibly relevant to what we have today. And another association that came up, I especially heard this from two of my teachers actually, before I even thought of this myself, is the relevancy to how radium is like, or how AI is like this generation's radium. Like we don't understand the powers of AI yet, just like how they didn't understand the powers and the possible negative effects of radium back in that time. And just for these reasons, I fell in love mainly with the themes that revolve around this play concerning those two topics.
That's an interesting comparison, between the power of AI, but also like what nobody kind of knew what was going on with radium at the time and the effects that it had overall. Ishani, so you're playing Grace.
Yes.
Who is Grace to you?
Grace she changes a lot throughout the play, I will say.
Okay.
Her character development from the start to end is very noticeable. We kind of start with her in her teen years, like her early teens. She's around 15. We end with her around the age of, I want to say 30-ish. So there's a lot of development to me. But at the start, we see more of a timid girl who grows into this person who learns she has to fight for everything she has. And seeing her grow like that definitely is what resonates most about our character.
Sure.
And
that's just such a great journey, it sounds like, to play with as an actor.
Yes, definitely.
So how do you begin kind of developing your character then? Obviously, I know it's on the script and you kind of have with the script, but like, how do you kind of make this character your own while also remaining true to what's on the page?
I think character development starts with understanding the character's motives. That's definitely something we talk about a lot. We go through every line and we say, what is the purpose of this line itself? Doing that for every line, especially going throughout the scenes and reassessing her motivation between everything again and again is what helped me track her development most, because you kind of see a shift in tone throughout the play. Sure. I think that's the first approach for developing her character.
Absolutely. I mean, because it truly is kind of the driving force of what the show is for her narrative. So Gugan, you're playing Arthur.
Yeah.
And very similar to what I asked Ishani, who is Arthur to you, especially in this story? You know, like who is this character that you get to play with?
Okay, so Arthur, he's a villain, but he's not the casual big bad villain. Like, one of the major things that surprised me when I read this play for the first time is how big of a role the villain has in the story. Because like usually when reading a book, yeah, the villain has a role, but not as big as you would expect. But in this play, you can actually see his daily life. You can see how his world works, and it's very different and it's very unique, which I really love. And it's kind of like a roller coaster, because at some times my character can be a very racist, sexist jerk. But then other times, like when instances when I'm with my wife, for example, or when I'm with my child, like the audience starts to feel sympathy for me. So I really just like bringing the different emotion to the character and really like almost confusing the audience and like playing the devil's advocate here, like really showing them how yes, I am the villain, but there is a story to the villain as well.
That sounds like such a cool role to kind of get to play within.
Yeah, it is really great. And like, I'll be honest, I was surprised when I got this role, because in my last play, I was like the complete opposite. I was a really shy, timid guy who kept calling everyone master. And here I'm like more haughty and like more like very confident in myself. So it's really interesting getting to experiment with that new type of character.
So for you then, how do you develop your character, especially as you're rehearsing leading up to the showtime?
So as I'm rehearsing, I'm just trying to think how the play works and what moment in the roller coaster analogy that I described before, like where I'm at, like whether the audience is supposed to be sympathizing with me or more against me. So there's a couple scenes where they're really sympathizing with me. So there's a character who is my wife and a character who is also my daughter in this play too. There's scenes where I seem like such a great dad, and then in the next scene I'll be arguing with my wife and saying that she doesn't know anything. So like I'm really trying to experiment and just like make the audience feel different emotions, you know?
And that's so cool. Being able to kind of, you said it is a roller coaster because you never know where exactly, are you at a high or at a low? Like, where's your character at? And getting to portray that, especially as, like you said, as the villain, that has to be really cool.
Yeah, and as Ishani said, she has a character arc too. And like, it's really great working with Ishani too. Like how we argue, and there's like a sort of reoccurring theme that where I don't really see her as a person. I don't even look at her, like even the court scene. So it's like kind of interesting seeing the dynamic she has, like her trying to basically attack me through lawsuits, and I'm just refusing to acknowledge her to her face.
What is that kind of like, Ishani? Like the butting of heads, it feels a little bit like a chess game.
I honestly, butting of heads isn't necessarily the imagery I would use to describe it, because a lot of times it feels like I'm coming at him and he's sort of running from me. I think that's a big realization that my character has come to play, is that he isn't willing to face me. He isn't willing to see me as his opposition. Instead, he sees like a greater power, or like the radium itself, as his opposition, while I'm sitting here trying to say, I'm the one who's hurt. I'm the victim. Look at me and answer to me and give me what I need to make up for it. While he's trying to solve this bigger problem of radium, I'm like, I need the money for my family? What about my family, my people, my life? So I think more than butting heads, it's more of like me trying to pull him to see me.
What
more
a
than
strong,
like pushing each other.
Yeah, like what a strong role. Like that's so cool to be able, like, Grace sounds undeniably strong to go against an impossible person, it feels like.
Yeah, I feel like that's something she grows into too, as you see it. I don't feel like 15-year-old Grace would have had the courage it took. I truly don't think, but I think that was something she grew and learned to do throughout the play, which is interesting to see.
Absolutely. So Carlos, as the ringleader here, as the one that's kind of, you have this vision. I guess, like, what was your overall vision as you began the production? How did you start to implement that as you're kind of, I know you're still about a month out, from the show, but like how you're working towards that vision. What is that like for you?
For me, it's understanding a lot of it is what I think each character is going for, as well as understanding what the actors think they're going for. And a lot of it is comparing between each other. What do you think is they're going for? And what do I think we're going for? Which of these can we try? And a lot of it is experimenting with the different things that the character might feel in that situation. And I have to say, both Ishani and Gugan and all of the cast really are doing an absolutely wonderful job with looking at their characters and understanding where they're coming from. And for me, with that, I think I'm trying to, I don't want to tell them things to do, but I'm trying to help them along with what I think and see if that is enabling them to help pursue what they think their character is going to do, or how they would say a certain thing, or what inflection they would give a word, or which word to put an inflection on. Because it's getting so good at this point that it's just down to the little things. Like, can you try putting inflection on this word instead of this word? And it's really just a really fun experience. In realizing the play in my vision, where I've had the most trouble, and I think it's because I'm also familiar with this as an actor, is getting the set design part of things, which is, what are we going to make this look like? What do we want in the background? How do we want lights to look, sound, and all that? And I think that's where I'm having the most trouble navigating. But in terms of giving notes to the actors, they're doing absolutely wonderful. I feel like I'm just putting the gas on the train, but we're already on the tracks. They are the tracks. They know what they're doing.
That's an incredible compliment, especially when you're still a month out. That, like, it feels like there's a lot of passion from everybody that's just loving the show.
Yeah, and if I could add, today was our second off-book rehearsal, and I just have to say, I can see everybody's passion and how well they're memorized. Like, they're so eager to get out and get it. Like, Ishani and Gugan have both huge parts, and they're both absolutely killing it. And even everybody else in the cast is doing wonderful, and I can just see the passion. Everything is going great.
Now, is there I guess, like, how do you approach a fictional story that's set in real life events? Because obviously this is something that people really dealt with, and there's a bit of historical drama to this. Is there a specific way as a director that you have to navigate that, or do you feel like it's pretty much the same as you would with like a completely fictional story?
Yeah, there's an element of not disrespecting the memory that especially Grace and the other Radium Girls have left behind. So in my thinking, a lot, especially about the themes, like I stated before, about corporate greed, I think in trying to implement that into the play, I feel like I'm understanding the memory that they've left behind and what they would have liked to leave behind, because uh, the story of the Radium Girls brought a lot of equality into the workplace. It was the first real establishment of good things for workers and work regulations for workers. And I feel like that's kind of what I'm getting at in talking about how corporations are not abiding by these regulations nowadays and trying to establish those themes. So that always plays a part in how I'm trying to think about the legacy that the Radium Girls have left behind, is thinking how I can bring that into the modern day.
For sure, absolutely. So, Gugan, how do you feel like this show has pushed you in your role as an actor?
So, like I said before, my previous role was absolutely nothing like this. And I feel like as a whole, my character and how my general personality are two very different things. And that's what I love so much about Drama Club, is when you step into the role, of a character, you really get to experiment to being a new person. And I feel like Drama Club has changed my personality too. And I just really love, like, in Drama Club, just in this play, being such a like villainous, confident character. It's really fun, and just like the inside jokes that this play has caused, and all of just the general vibe of just me and Ishani's rivalry is really great to see.
I can imagine, absolutely, and you get that's so cool that it's so different that you're learning something new, and Drama Club there's such a benefit to this. Obviously, having a community is important, but just having it together and building something beautiful together is so cool. Ishani, how about for you? How has this pushed you as an actor, or like how has this challenged you to grow in your role?
I'm gonna say I feel pretty opposite from Gugan. He talks about how this is like a whole new personality of his. I oftentimes feel like Grace is just an extension of myself. Like, I feel like her personality is a lot like mine at times. Not to toot my own horn. She's like so much fun. But I think the way she grows and growing with her is definitely what challenges me most, because not to sound like a broken record, but her development is very drastic. And in that, it's like every time I try to pick a trait for her character, it changes so drastically by the next scene that I'm trying to keep up with her growth, because she's growing like 10 years. I've grown like 17. So I don't have as much experience in life as she does by the end. So keeping up with her character has definitely been my greatest challenge. But I think that it also shows me ways in which I can grow as a person. And so making those connections between my real life and her personality and her character is definitely what pushes me.
Absolutely. And that's such a great way to kind of reflect on that. Like, it's helping you learn where to grow. So, Carlos, you talked a lot about themes. You mentioned quite a few themes. Which theme do you feel like resonates the most with you right now?
Currently, it's still, I would say, the one about corporate greed. That's stood out to me immediately. AI one I thought is also huge, but in resonating with me, it's definitely that, because I feel like we just see it every day. Like every single time I go onto Instagram or something and I look at a few posts, there's like one more ad than there was in the last. And there's just it just keeps on increasing, and I just don't know when there's an end to it. And I guess it's not exactly the same with the radium as it's harming people, but I feel like we see it in smaller forms day to day. And it's like that. And we also see it larger at times, similar to the case of the Radium Girls, where people are being harmed and the corporation doesn't want to stop. One thing I think about specifically about that is Nestle, in their human right violations in labor and producing chocolate. Like that was the first thing I thought of. Just Nestle, this is exactly what they're doing. They're harming people for their own gain, and there's no opposition to it. It just keeps going on. And that resonated with me hugely, especially.
Beautiful answer. Gugan, how about for you? What themes from Radium Girls really resonate with you?
I think the general theme that my character has. So while I am a character, I'm more of like a symbol for the overall state of America at the time and the state of capitalism at the time. So there's three main characters like on my side, sort of. There's me, my lawyer, Mr. Markley, and my sort of henchman and vice president, C.B. Lee. And all of these actors are doing a great job. And like together, it's really fun seeing the dynamic we have with Ishani, how when in front of her, we're just ignoring her, but behind the scenes, like we are stressed out. We're having court cases and trying to come up with ways to override the damage that they're doing, because they're bringing a lot of publicity into this. So I think the general themes that I'm trying to bring forward is how this is a very important theme in our world today too, and how despite big corporations and big names, which is the US Radium Corporation, who I represent, even small everyday heroes can overgo and speak out against these huge corporations. And the real life case that this Radium Girl story is based off is very, very important, like Carlos said. And it truly showed us that it was really one of the first times that small or ordinary people protested and actually won a court case against such a big company. And I think I really want the audience to take away that home, that they're not just regular audience members. They have this power too. And this play is sort of like an advocation and showing them that they are capable of what Ishani is also doing.
Beautiful answer. Ishani, how about for you? Closing us out, what are the themes are really speaking to you right now?
I gotta say, I agree a lot with Gugan. A lot about like small everyday actions can be momentous. I think that especially seeing it through Grace, like when I talk to my mom or I'm talking to my fiance, seeing the way she has such big hopes and big goals that seem like everyday things to us. Like she desperately wants to get married. Like she is thinking so much about her wedding and all this, like she's thinking about, helping her parents out with bills. All these small things are so big to her because of everything she's giving in this case. So I think that a lot, while we see how everyone can be a hero, it's also about how everyone makes sacrifices and how everyone's lives are so different.
Such a beautiful answer. Thank you, you three, for being here. It's been such a pleasure talking to the three of you. And this sounds like such an incredible production that I hope everybody turns up and enjoys it and learns something about history and how important it is to have maybe a voice when we don't always think that we do. So thank you.
Thank you so much
for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was very fun.
So Radium Girls plays at International Academy East on April 10th and 11th. So get your tickets now and we'll see you at the show.